3 men approaching 60. Only 2 of us fit that category. The third is well and truly past it. But I'm too much of a gentleman to identify the geriatric in our midst.
Just wait for bus pass.
That's true, I haven't done that. I'll leave it to you to identify who perhaps could be the oldest of the group. But sincerely, I'm delighted this evening to introduce our 3 guest speakers. Roy Stanley, on my left, is an entrepreneur and a highly successful businessman. He's based in the northeast of England, and in recognition of his business and management skills, he has been named Chairman of Business Link Northeast. He runs a number of very profitable companies on Christian ethical grounds, and is a very happily married man. On my right,
most of that was right. The last bit was totally spot on.
Ram Barnett is a teacher of considerable renown. He taught craft and design in various schools in Edinburgh before being made deputy head teacher at St Thomas's in Edinburgh, a post from which he has recently retired. He has a well-established reputation for being at the forefront of justice and peace issues within the church, and is a much-loved husband, father, and grandfather. He told me to say the last bit. Myself, I'm Des Brogan, and I'm a storyteller. I told stories for many years in Holyrood High School as a history teacher, and then I left after that the classroom and went in to tell stories on the Royal Mile. My history tour companies provide history stories on the Royal Mile, in the trenches of the First World War, in the beaches of D-Day, and in the camps of the Holocaust. Not all on the one tour. And that is our panel this evening. So, can I begin, ladies and gentlemen? We have lived through tremendous times. During our lifetime, the atom has been split. Birth control has been introduced. People have been to the moon and back. And the world is really now a global village. What we're going to do in the course of the next hour is to go through our lives and face some of the issues, perhaps, that we have come across in our lifetime. But let's begin at the beginning. Can we start with, like to tell me about your family background and your memories of early life? Who would like to start?
Let me start. Well, I was born in Liverpool, though I've lived in Newcastle now for nearly 40 years. Came from a very poor background, but very loving, very Catholic, but predominantly Irish Catholic. I think probably the most formative kind of thing that happened to me was when I was about 2.5, nearly 3, between that age, actually went deaf. And I lost about 85% of my hearing. So that was had quite a profound impact on my life. And it has interesting kind of connotations because most people think that I'm rather aloof and I don't listen to them and I ignore them. And this is true. I have recently, the last about 10 years ago, got what I call my gadgets. I have 2 to 10-inch screws inserted in my head, and I have a gadget which clips on, and it is, I would recommend it for all husbands. It is absolutely fantastic. When the going gets rough, just switch it off. It is wonderful. But as I say, born in Liverpool, it was a very, through the 50s and 60s, a very happening place. I had the good fortune to see the Beatles live. I used to go to Cavern, probably when I was really too young to be going to Cavern, 15, 16 years of age. But I had a very, very good family background, very supportive. And again, another kind of impactful thing in my life, I guess, was I won a scholarship to a Jesuit grammar school, which I still got the scars to prove it. So you can take the shirt off and see what was called a feral arts. I got a record, and I'm going to stop after this, On that first day at school, I made a fake mistake. My mother took me to school. Now, you can imagine an 11-year-old lad. The school was about 10 miles away from where I lived. I lived right in the middle of Liverpool, and this school was in the posh part of Liverpool called Bolton. So my mother held my hand going up the drive to this school. You can imagine all the lads looking out to what you're doing. So within the first 10 minutes of being at the school, I found myself in a fight. And I hold the record for this school, St Francis Xavier's College, of being the only and first ever boy on the first day of school to actually get caned within 15 minutes of starting school. So it was a traumatic start.
And left a lasting impression.
It did. Intellectually demanding.
I was born on the 21st of June, which most years was the longest day, which my mother definitely was. I was a breech birth. I was the third of three boys, and she was really looking forward to a girl. She then, years later, when Anne and I were expecting our third child, and we had three girls, and my mum said, if it had been a boy, would you have called him Robert? And she said, no, I don't really like the name Robert. So that was my start in life, stayed at Tollcross, which is in the centre of Edinburgh. When I was looking up details on Tollcross on the internet from my Dr. James Berry, it was described as the theatre land of Edinburgh, which I never really quite thought of it as when I grew up. It wasn't rough. I mean, I was thinking about recently about the gangs and various things, and the only time I was conscious of being involved in a gang was at bonfire time. And I loved bonfire time. I thought it was the best time of the year. One, you could go around the streets as a big mob with big cudgels. Maybe it was just a cross who did this. And you could take wood from anywhere you wanted. So if somebody had wood in their cellar, or if it was houses that were unoccupied, you could get the doors and all for the body. And you could devise plans whereby
we call it burglary.
see, we're from a little bit. And also, I think it was the thing about the time where I love fire. And I think that came to me then, and the smell of smoke and fire. My middle daughter, who works at Carstairs, when I spoke to her about it, she said, yeah, there's many people who got locked up there of that same sort of. Went to St Ignatius Primary, which was just down the road, which I think I liked, but I'm not sure. Went to Holy Cross Academy, which was terrible, awful, hated it. I think it was one of the, but some people enjoyed it. I hated it and detested it. I remember being there, linking with you, was it I waited, I got through first year quite well, and in fact I got the RE prize, and it was mainly because it was based on, I think, they went through it alphabetically, so Biff or Burnley, you got who made you, which was fairly easy, but nobody told me about the prize, so I kept off the prize given on the last day. So I remember going back to second year, and Tony, the head director, as he was called, he called me into his office and gave me 6 of the belt for Troonton. And then handed me my prize, and it was this big book, and it was about the priesthood. And there was this lovely wee picture, it's the hands on the front, and it was called My Precious Hands. Now after what he'd done in my hands, I thought it was quite fine. So I laughed. And one of those stupid questions, was it like another 6 months? So that's, went to Holy Cross, hated it, and that was about 11. That's when I was 11. Over to you.
Right, well, my background then, I came very much as a surprise to my parents, because my parents were in the late 40s when I was born. And I was born in September 1951, which you know as the year of the Festival of Britain. And for years I thought that there was a direct connection between my birth and my festival. And I think like a lot of people at the time, I was born home. I come from Basel, and from the West End of that. brothers, I've got 3 older brothers, and it's quite a difference between myself and my oldest brother. There are 13 and a half years in difference, and after that it's 12 years, and then it's 7 years between brothers closest to myself. And I was told that on the day I was born, which was a Sunday, my father took the kids up to evening mass and to get them out of the house while things were happening in the bedroom, the one room kitchen. So they would have noticed, you know, if they'd been around. And when they came back after mass, there I was. And my brother closest to me didn't go to church for years after he was afraid there would be somebody else in the house. I'd also came from a very loving family, very supportive family, Irish Catholic background, with hundreds of relatives, most of whom were spinster ladies who were the primary teachers. And they would come round incessantly, and you had to parade in front of them and say whatever poem you had learned at school or sing a hymn or whatever. The only good thing about it was you got half a crown at the end of it, so that kind of increased my coffers quite a bit. I went to a school called St Charles's Primary, and then to St Augustine's Secondary. And I know that I loved the secondary school, but I wasn't so keen in primary. I loved secondary school because I got involved in all sorts of different things there. However, this is where I really suffered from having elderly parents, because my mother didn't really want to let me grow up, and therefore she kept me in short trousers. I was the only statistic in the entire secondary school population in Scotland that wore short trousers up to the age of 15. It has never left me that many. And I think probably that it was quite canter for me, because you had to fight in your own way. And I couldn't fit, I mean, if you look at me, obviously I'm not kind of physically built to be in confrontation with anyone. So the only way I could try and beat people was in school, mentally. And that kind of encouraged me to learn. And if it hadn't been for that, I think I would have been a very different person. So it's amazing how things work out. You know, sometimes it's negative things that have a positive reaction on you. So that's my kind of German background. Now, we come therefore from Catholic backgrounds from the east of Scotland, the west of Scotland, and the north of England. I'm sure when we look back to the 50s and 60s, there will be lots of things that we have in common. And what I'd like to do just now, and please, as audience, please join in this. I'd like us to think back to our salad days in the 50s, or not pre-salad days, when we were small lettuces. Think back to the 50s and come up with one word or one phrase of something at the time that was common to us. And I'll start this. You've only allowed one word, one phrase, everyone. Fish and Saturday, fish and Fridays. Saturday afternoon flicks.
Mass and Sunday.
Mass and Sunday.
Rationing.
Rationing. Ooh, that's good.
Oil lamps.
Oil lamps.
Gas lamps.
Gas lamps.
Coffee shops. Milk bars.
Milk bar.
Free school milk.
Free school milk.
Trams.
The trams, right, we're still there. Baths on Saturday night.
Ice on the inside of windows.
No for cinema. Well,
Outside toilets.
Outside toilets.
Condensation.
Condensation.
Finally, street cross.
Isn't it? I'm sure all these things will have memories for all of us. And no matter what part of the country you come from, these are kind of common memories, aren't they? From the past. Let's move a little bit on to the 60s and the 70s. Those were our salad days, going to university, college, or whatever. What are your predominant memories of them?
I think in the 60s, the big thing I think was the student revolutions everywhere. Thomas Merton said that '68 he thought was a movement of the spirit throughout the world, but the fact that almost in every country you had young people on the street protesting and legitimately protesting, and the debate and the dialogue that was going on, I thought was incredible, especially compared to the recent riots and that, and people on the street, which there didn't seem to be any real focus.
Were you aware of that at the time? Because how old would you have been? I know you're considered
68, I was 18.
Yeah. So you were 18, so you were actually aware of that, and
yeah,
interested in that?
Oh, and you would go on anti-Vietnam demos and everything. And I think protest and being on the streets and thinking about your society and how you could change it was part of the way things were going on. It wasn't just, when Kieran Hurley spoke last night, it wasn't just that there was good music floating about, it was the fact that young people thought they could change things, and it was right and legitimate to occupy various things. And especially I remember reading, I think it was through the international Marxists, with lots of stuff about France and everything, and I thought it was tremendous what was happening there. And I suppose it tied in a lot with appreciating the radical working class tradition we had in Scotland. Like my family, the family was always very Labour. They were very left wing, and at the time Labour was left wing. I don't know if you can call that. And so like my dad was very involved in the union. Remember, like every Monday night he would collect the dues and take it along to the local union office. So there was that sense in which, yeah, you should be reflecting about society and you should be actively doing something to protest. And you could make a difference. I think there was hope.
And did you, throughout your university days,
Didn't go to university then.
Well, throughout your education, period of education, because you obviously went to teacher training, so on.
Yeah.
So were you politically active?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that there was the Vietnam War, and then there was the events in Ireland. And I think when you moved away, like within Edinburgh, as you were talking earlier, like you obviously tend to think of Glasgow as having all the sectarian problems. In the past, Edinburgh has had that. But yet, when you looked at Northern Ireland, it was the civil rights, the whole thing, that the people were on the streets, there was a sense of injustice, and we should be involved in doing something about that. And I think there was just a lot of consciousness raising. And like I said, the debates, various things going on, marches you could attend, weekend events you could go to, and it was very, very exciting.
Right.
I think my memories of the time was about tension. You know, and if I had to reflect on it from a personal perspective, I mean, I talked before about the school I went to. That was a real tension in my family. The school I went to was a kind of very erudite, highly intellectualised experience. And then I was living in this place called, in the middle of Liverpool, called Bramwell Hill, where my parents were, my father went to see it, so I didn't see it at all. But my mother, my grandmother now, and my aunt, who were really responsible for my upbringing, were, and I'm saying this in a nice way, were quite ignorant. And so their expectation of what I, for me as a person, they didn't have any. Their care was that I ate and that I was loved. That's what it was. So this tension was there. And the ignorance expressed itself in lots of ways. I mean, I often tell the story. My sister started to menstruate when she was 9, which is relatively young. So my mother sent for my auntie. Every family has one. The kind of, the guru of the family. So they sent for my auntie. My auntie comes across to give my sister a talk about what was happening, and told her that every month she would lay an egg. So for about 6 years, my sister thought she was a chicken. So you got that tension. I was very aware of politics. I was interested in it, but it wasn't something that I was actively. I was more self-centered. I was very much interested. I just wanted to meet girls, drink beer, and and do well at school, which is basically how I spent my formative years of adolescence. If you like. And it was only when I came through that you kind of begin to reflect in terms of, how do you want to run your life, what you want to do. I didn't take myself too seriously, and I still don't. You just get on. You put one step in front of the other every day. A friend of mine once said, you can only deal with what comes up to you, and you can't necessarily solve all the problems of the world. But I do believe in being active in trying to solve the problems that are within my immediate community. Now, how I define that community, that's something different.
In my case, I was the first of my generation to go to university. And I think, I think we were saying about the close community of your family. We had two aunts, maiden aunts, who lived around the corner, who were more or less second, third mothers to us. And when I came to my 6th year and I had to decide what was going to happen, I think my aunts and my mother, my father didn't seem to take much of a direct interest. No doubt he was, but he kept himself behind the scenes very much. But the 3 ladies in the family were concerned about what was going to become of me, because I was small, I was thin, I was quiet and shy.
You were in your shorts, were you?
Yeah, only a couple of years had shorts, you can't remember that. It had a huge impact. So when they thought I was going to go to university, they thought it would be safe for a while, because he won't be in industry, he won't be doing some things that he's in a dangerous position. So that was the kind of thing that they looked at in me going to university. And I found it a tremendously liberating experience. And it was one of the times when I had to tell lies to my family, because I got an offer of university to go to Glasgow, and the other offer was to go to Stirling University. Now, we lived at the bottom of University Avenue in Glasgow, and it meant if I went to Glasgow University, I would have gone from house to uni to house to uni, because you didn't live anywhere else, couldn't afford it. And I knew at the end of the day I would be expected back for my tea, where I still was away. And we were very privileged at that time, I think our generation, to have grants that allowed us to go to university. So I went to Stirling and a whole new world opened up. It was education for education's sake. It was exciting. There was a lot of, can I do it? I don't know whether I can do it, because nobody else has ever done it in my family. So you were kept working hard because you wanted to, but also because you were shit scared of failure. And that's what kept me to the grindstone. And then when I left, when I graduated, there were 2 jobs in history teaching in Scotland. I came out in January '75, and it was a kind of an odd time of year because of the degree I did. There were only 2 jobs. One was in Glasgow, a school in Glasgow, and the other was in Holyrood High in Edinburgh. Now, I knew if I went back to Glasgow, there was no question that I would have to go back home, because you did that until you were married, and then you moved out. And after 4 years at university in Stirling, I couldn't have gone back to that sort of restricted background. So I took up the job in Holyrood, and everything kind of went from there. But I would have to say, because of that, I was not particularly interested in politics. I would listen to the news and read the newspapers, but I didn't feel that it was something that I had to take a part in or do something about. And that only came later. If we can move on a little further then in our discussions, we've now come to the end almost of our professional careers. And as we look back, there have been, again, huge changes in the society that we started out to work in. Have you been part of those changes, do you think? Have you contributed to what those changes are? Or have you been bystanders in your professional life?
I think the only thing you can, again, it's a personal philosophy, it's not for everybody. I have this thing that, I try hard to meet it, but I often fail in doing it. And that is that whoever I meet feels better having met me about themselves, feels better about themselves. So that's my kind of goal. So when I get up in the morning, whoever I'm going to meet, is the aim that I've got is that they are going to feel better. The organisation I'm kind of working, it's quite sizable, it's multinational, there's a lot of people working in business. And it's very easy when you're running a business to almost not relate to the people that work in it and not interact with them. Business for me is as much a social experience as it is a money-making kind of venture. So it's very important to me that the organisation that I'm responsible for, the businesses I'm responsible for, that there is a feeling of well-being, that people feel that they're looked after, that people feel that they're cared for in as much as you can within an organisation. And it's obviously safe, they're healthy, etc., etc. But I think this idea of changing the world, there's lots of things that I have been involved in. Ministry, youth ministry, teaching. I was a school teacher for 14 years, and that was a great experience. So I've probably touched a lot of lives, as a lot of lives have touched my life. So that's my goal. I mean, there's activities I am involved with, public activities. But my goal on a personal level is on a daily basis, whoever I meet, is to make that person feel better about themselves.
So that's part of your personality, you would say, or is it something that you deliberately looked to do? Serendipity, have you worked at it?
Well, both really. Well, all of those that you just said. I mean, it wasn't something it wasn't a natural inclination that I was born with, because I'm, can be quite a selfish person, as most men can be. What I've had to do is kind of work out that personal philosophy for myself. But it's not an event, it's a process. It's like a lot of things in life. Most people treat a lot of things as events. They're not, they're processes. It's, the decision that you get up in the morning that you love your wife. To me, that's a daily decision. And it's a daily decision that I want to make. The decision you get up and you're going to try and be a better person, that's a decision. And you often have to make that every day of your life. You can't make it like 20 years ago or something. It's going to roll out. It doesn't work.
In your case, what changes have you seen in society that you haven't thought of?
I think that our society's changed so much. I think in terms of, in one sense, community. Like when I grew up in Tollcross, my granny and granddad were around the corner, aunts and uncles were all in walking distance. If you did anything wrong, which was often, by the time you got home, your parents knew about it. So I think things there are broken down, but within education, there's been tremendous changes that you couldn't get swept along. It's like, every year in schools you go in and you look at the league tables and the results and you see how you're doing. And what I've always tried to do is just focus on individuals and say, it's good that your school's doing well, but really you want to see how wee Jimmy or whatever got on, who really knocked his pan in, and allowing from the situation he comes from. He's done great. One to give praise, just to sit exams. And I think for me that's one of the big things I think in being involved. When I went into teaching, there was the big thing about education versus schooling. And all the time I've been very conscious that my experience was schooling, it wasn't education. And trying to, I think like you say about the decision, that no matter what your educational masters or whatever say, that you will continually strive to say, well, this is why I'm in teaching, this is why I went into it. And pupils sit in exams that they will maybe fail. The perceived wisdom in certain schools is, well, we'll not let them sit it because then our results will look better. And arguing to say, well, it would be good for them to sit it. Because at the end of the day, they could look back and say, well, I might have got that, but the school blocked it for me. but being able to say, yeah, you can sit it and it will help you face up to the reality of it. So I think there's areas like that. For me, I don't know, the decision, I think a lot of the things that I've tried to do and live, it's like that parable of the sower. You don't know. You try and, plant the seeds, treat people how you think youngsters should be treated and respected and valued, especially the ones who are more vulnerable for whatever reason, and just hope that something comes through that. And on a personal level, I mean, for me, decision-wise, I would love to just go away and be by myself. Like, I don't know why I'm sitting here tonight, apart from, I don't think I fully understood what Mike Knox was saying when he thought that when I said yes. And for me to do certain, I couldn't do things and move forward. One, because when I came out of Holy Cross, the big thing I left was it was a sense of you're kind of worthless. That was the big stand that gave you. You've not achieved this. You can't go into university. I remember going to the careers advisor and the guy saying, "Oh, Burnett, you're a thug, the army." And I thought, thanks. And I didn't fancy the army. I didn't think I'd suit that.
Did you agree with the bit about the thug?
Possibly, because I wanted to batter him. So, but I didn't. And for me, I think being married, having Anne's influence, which was very transforming, being in the parish community, living with Joe and Rosa, all various things have helped me, as Roy was saying, that decision to be able to say, well, yeah, that's what I'd like to do, and I think that's right. And therefore, through those people in that community, you have the strength to try and do it.
We'll come back to that actually later on. A lot of what you're saying, both of you are saying about resonances in my life as well. And I think that the big changes in society I've noticed, again, are the way that we have changed the way that we look at youngsters in school. When I first started teaching, it was quite common to see kids beaten up, see kids belted in school. Now, thank God that's gone, but that was part of what was expected of you, certainly in certain schools in Glasgow. There was a thug culture among the teachers, never mind among the kids. Thank God that's changed. The whole way of looking at what education is about, I think, has evolved. And for the better. It's not perfect yet by any manner of means. We're still having debates about should we be teaching through exams, or should exams be a reflection on kids' achievement and all that sort of thing. I think that's right that we have these debates, but at one time, we must remember only a third of the youngsters who ever went to secondary school got a certificate, and the other two-thirds were regarded as non-certificate, and were they only of industry or coal mines or cannon fodder or whatever. That's changed, and that's a change for the better, I think.
I think the problem now is we've gone so far with that the expectation we have that every child should go to university, for example, it's what we're losing out. We're losing a whole artisan class now. 20 years time, you try and get a plumber, or you try and get a plasterer, or try and get a builder, and you'll struggle because they won't be there. We've just, I think, gone. I mean, we've had a tremendous legacy for the last 15 years. I'm a Labour supporter as well, but I blame the Labour Party for this. They've squandered the massive amounts of money that we've had, and they've just thrown it at lots of things without really trying to get value for money out of it. I mean, when you walk into your GP, which is one of my experiences, and he actually says, Roy, they just doubled my money, and I can't work any harder than when I'm already working. He says, I just find it ludicrous.
Though is that partly a result in itself of another of the big changes that we've all experienced, and that is the influence of Thatcher and the Thatcher view of government, because that changed society tremendously. I mean, I seem to remember that when I was leaving university, it was the same time as a lot of other people who were leaving and going into the caring professions, you know, the social worker or the ministry or teaching or whatever. And there seemed to be a concern to go out and do something to improve your society. Whereas Maggie Thatcher changed that around quite a bit by saying there is no society.
Brad touched on it before, I think you used the word failure. I think as a society we're very, very quick to label people with failure. And you know, I had the experience about a couple of years ago. I was looking for an investment in a company and went to a big American fund manager, and he said, "How many times have you been bankrupt?" And I said, "I've never been bankrupt." And he said, "Well, you're not investable." You know, in America they have this thing that if you've been bankrupt 3 times, you know what you're doing. You know, you go to a bank manager in the UK and ask for an investment, you say you've been bankrupt 3 times, and sure you don't. We have this thing where we don't allow people to fail, learn by the experience you get, particularly with kids. We have this chronology. Where in the world does it say a kid has to be 18 to do their A-levels? You know, everything's kind of regimented. It's rigorous. You know, you've got to be at a certain stage, at a certain standard, at a certain age. And when we look back and reflect these men moving towards 60 and one already 60, you just realise how ludicrous that is, how stupid it is. But we don't know how to organise schools any other way. And that was one of my frustrations when I was a school teacher. I wanted 13-year-olds in classes with 15-year-olds, 15-year-olds in classes with 18-year-olds. But we don't have the nous or we don't have the will to structure. Now, you look and reflect on that where it works in society. You know, you look at that. 20% of people coming out of the armed forces right now are finding their way up to the streets. You know, tonight in Newcastle, there's probably going to be 484 people living homeless on the streets of Newcastle. The Cyrenes do a fantastic job giving them accommodation. Of those 480, there'll be 80 who are ex-squatters. You know, and we can't deal with that as a society. The way we deal with it is we ignore it. You know, we don't do anything about it, we just ignore it, and that goes on and on and on. You know, if you're asking where is the face of the church today? You know, where is it? Where is it? Somebody want to tell me where it is, right? Where is it? Is it at the pointy end of where we should be? You know, are we lifting the people out off the streets? Are we finding them homes? Are we doing what we could for these people?
I mean,
I don't have any sense of despair, by the way. I have a sense of real optimism, because I see it going on. I see the people working hard, doing that kind of work, not the kind of work I can do, but I see it being done. And I think that's fantastic.
Yes, it's one thing that there are so many things that you've said there. That's a very rich set of statements. One thing that comes to mind for myself is I'm glad that we are talking about what education is appropriate and providing exams for youngsters when 50, 60, 70 years ago that education, that debate rather would not have happened. It would be a case that you leave school and you go into the mines and you go into the factories, and education wasn't a factor. So I think, although there may be problems with the level, the type of education that's provided, at least we are talking about educating people.
I think what we've ended up with, and you're reflecting it somewhat, I'm saying so, Des, we end up with prejudice that says, what's wrong with going down the line? You know, what is it that says...
Age of 8, 9 and 10.
No,
have to be like this. No,
I agree with that. But we've almost, like, I stand up, but again, that's a few months ago, I stood up in a school assembly and asked how many of you people in your old how many of the kids would like to be engineers? Because I think we'll know we've cracked it when a mother says, I want my daughter to marry an engineer. You know, you'll know we've made it. Now it's like, I want to marry a lawyer or an accountant or a school teacher or whatever, right? So we've lost this I'm ranting here a little bit, But anyway, the point of the story was I stood up and said, how many would like to be engineers? And put their hands up. After I'd finished, I asked the same question, and less people put their hands up. So it just shows you how influential I was. But I think that the prejudice of education is that we're trying to funnel kids into this pointy bit, which is get your degree, get your qualification, become a lawyer, become a doctor, become an accountant. I know people want that for our kids, most of them. But there's a whole other way of thinking, which I'm not sure how we get there.
Okay. I'll leave that hanging just now because I want to move on to another area at the moment. One of the big changes, I think, in our lifetime has been when you look at a formal religious observance. The number of people going to church regularly on Sunday has gone down. Churches talk about being in crisis and being empty and so on. Why do you think that's happened?
I don't think people have been fed and nourished when they go to church. In most cases, I think one of the experiences we've had in school throughout my teaching career at times has been told the liturgies and the various things you're doing within school raise a false expectation amongst the young people that this is what church life will be like and this is the liturgical experiences that we'll have when they go into their parishes. The routine of most parishes is kind of dull and boring, and people just go to Mass on Sundays because they should, and then go away. And therefore, if you could drop the expectations, I think I did for the last number of years a course on spirituality with the seniors, and it was tremendous, and there was a real spiritual interest. And one of the things I do remember is when we first started it, we went on and we googled spirituality to see how many hits you got, and it was maybe a couple of million. Over the number of years we've been doing the course, it was about 8 years, it went up to almost about 30 million. You know, so it's one of the senior master classes, what do you think that indicates? And I says, oh, people are interested in spirituality. And then somebody put up their hand and said, and there must be money in it somewhere. Which was true, because a lot of the sites are, if you buy this, then your life will be fulfilled, and if you wear these kind of sandals, God will be walking with you, and all that sort of mess. But I think whilst there is a thirst for spirituality and an interest, and many people are looking at all the world religions and various other things, the churches, for various reasons, aren't meeting that need. I think what my own experience has been, in St Ninians we were incredibly privileged to have a community that was led and nourished by authentic ministers who were men of prayer and who were out there doing the various things, who were inviting through the open door the homeless in, who slept on the floor and various things, and who enabled you as individually and as a parish to do things that you knew were right to do, but on your own maybe didn't have the courage or the strength to go forward and do. And I think that was the great sign. There was this sense in which you were living out your faith in a more meaningful way. And I think, sadly, the churches just don't. Well, maybe that's too big a generalisation. I think for many young people, they think the churches don't offer them anything.
Yes. What do you say about that?
I think, unfortunately, it kind of cuts both ways. The church is universal. So in some areas around the world, the church is actually very actively powerful. In South America, Africa, it might be slightly traditional, but when a church looks at the church around the world, it just sees it's working, right? But if you think about the UK, think about the Newcastle Diocese, for example, the average age of the priest there now is well into the 60s, Pat. Yeah, yeah. So it's almost the church in the UK is going through a process. We will end up with the church we deserve. It's far too clericalised. You know, and I, again, I don't want to come across it too negative, but it's almost as a lip service to lay involvement. You know, so we've got what we deserve as a community, as a congregation. You know, we just go along after.
See, one of the interesting things during the course of this week, when we've been talking to the various other people who've been involved in conversation, especially the youngsters who've been out to Tanzania, they were talking about the sense of community that is most obvious in Africa, that you've just referred to just now. The other thing I think I would say, when you look at the videos, you see joy, you see happiness. These are the things that you don't, for the most part, experience within our church. No, I'm not talking about St. Ninians, that's a different matter. But nevertheless, in Scotland, where there's a joy, where there's a sense of community.
Well, Sartre once said that he would be a Christian if he saw people smiling coming out of church.
Yeah.
We don't exactly come out with real joy in our hearts. Yeah. But again, you've got to look, I mean, my Eucharist now is sitting around the table with my family. You know, it was my granddaughter's third birthday yesterday. We decided to get a takeaway. The whole family piled in. You know, 3 kids, their wives, etc., their girlfriends. We're all sitting around the table. To me, that is Eucharist. You know, that's where it's happening. That's
precisely what I think many of us would say about the parish of St. Ninians. I mean, that's where I see that's where I see Christ.
Well, is that right again? It's down to leadership we've been blessed in our parish. We've had great priests like Tom Katz, Father Sean Comity, people like that who you want to go to their liturgies. You know, I mean, there's others you wouldn't, you know, there's no way.
But on the other hand, again, to be positive about this, I think that while many of the youngsters that we brought up, our families perhaps, whatever, would not profess Catholicism, they're leading a much more spiritual life, or a much more a connected life with their communities than ever we did. I think, when I think of myself, it was a narrow observance. You had to go.
The church knows what to do with young people.
I don't think that the church necessarily does, but thankfully the church is not the Spirit. And the Spirit, I think, does know, and that is the inspiration. That's what's causing things to happen. And that's why I'm confident that things will go forward, because the Spirit is powerful within the communities that are actually listening to the Spirit. I'm aware that we're running out of time, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the point where I would like to hand over to yourselves. Comments, observations, questions, please feel free.
I just realised that would be
Yes, sir.
I wonder, gentlemen, how excited you're feeling about the 60 bar and your life beyond. How positive and excited.
I feel great, but do you know what it is? I feel you get to that stage of life where you're bringing all this experience that you've had, and you're bringing all the knowledge that you've got. And just imagine how powerful that could be in the right setting, doing the right things. You know, if liberated to get it done. I just think it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to the next 15 years.
Likewise, I think being a late developer in many ways, I think I've still to reach my prime. And that's going to be a long time ahead. What's sad about a lot of this is that when I feel this, members of my family are more concerned about whether I put on the right shoes when I go out, and I'm going to let them down in some way socially, you know, by saying that my son needs a sex quartet instead of a sax quartet. But I'm looking forward to the next 50 years out.
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I got to sit down myself. I looked at pictures of my grandparents, and they looked really, really old. Now, maybe I do, but when I look at them, I don't see an old person. I'm delighted. I've got my bus pass. I've got my diamond card for BQ. I've got my reduced rail pass. But I think more importantly, it was and starting to reflect and look back at my life, it's the sense of what I've lived through, and wisdom sounds awfully, I don't know, you don't believe in Trump, but I think there is the need within our society, like I think within African culture and other culture, there is a respect for the elderly because there is the recognition of what they can give. And I think maybe the role of our generation is to be able to say, how can we look and learn and share in dialogue with young people, not impose it on them, but just that really meaningful education to look back and see, yeah. But one of the big things that I mentioned, I thought of, the most amazing event I think was watching when Mandela got released. Now, I remember being young and going on marches, anti-apartheid marches, and if you said that you thought Mandela would get released, they would have thought, come on, you've been saying some wacky or whatever, you know? If you said, oh no, he'll be released and he'll be president, they would have really thought, oh, we're going to go lock you up. You're totally delusional. So I think it's recognising that out of the events and some of the things that have happened, that there is hope and being able to share and communicate with young people. It's something I'm looking forward to.
Any other points, observations? Right, can I then come back to yourselves, gentlemen, and ask you, if you had to give advice to the next generation, what advice would that be?
Go for it.
Right, simple, straightforward. Go for it. Achieve your aims.
No, not about, you don't, see that's the thing, you don't need to achieve anything, just go for it. Live life to its fullness.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's that one just to seize the day, just, I think, because coming back to the one, I think what was on the education and people going to university, I think it is the realisation of being able to say, within yourself, what do you want to go for, and therefore set out. I agree, I think for many of the young people I worked with, especially in the later years, there was, and I think because of the Blairite government saying, university for all, that's the be all and end all, instead of being able to say, it's like creativity and watching the thing like Kieran Hurley last night and being able to say, in the music groups and various other things, being able to say, what is it within yourself that excites you? What is the gift that you have, and how can we help you, use them and enjoy them?
I mean, I would endorse absolutely everything you've said, and I would add two other things, two other pieces of advice which I think are very important for everyone. And that is, first of all, retain a sense of humour. Because no matter what else happens in life, it's going to be up and down, whatever, and you need to be able to laugh. And the other side of that coin is don't take yourself too seriously. Because if you take yourself seriously, you're damn sure somebody else is not going to take you seriously. And that's when you're going to come into problems. And if you can see that and laugh at that, then you're going to be able to continue to go for it, in my opinion. Any advice our audience would like to give to succeeding generations? Because I have noticed that some of you are pushing 60 as well.
Yes, would that be the same advice if you were to give advice to your younger self? Would you say the same things?
That's an excellent question. I don't know whether I was clever enough to have known that at the time. I think it's something that you realise over a period of time that you can laugh at yourself. And probably that's the best thing to do, because if you're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, as no doubt all of us have been through, and you see all your problems parading in front of you, if you continue to pick at them and worry about them, then the situation becomes worse. If you can see another side to it, if you come at it from the northwest, and you can find an amusing way of debunking the situation, you're better, in a better position to be able to go to sleep again. But I think that comes with age rather than anything that I would have set out with.
I think I would have wished that I would have got some things a bit quicker. You know, one thing, for example, is the whole issue of forgiveness. You know, over your life, for 60 years coming up now, there are times when you feel hurt by people, and you feel quite bitter about what they may have done to you, or what you perceive that they've done to you. And I think I wish I'd got the forgiveness bit a lot quicker. I think I was about 58.
Could you have given yourself that your advice? Could you have accepted it?
I remember once being on a retreat, and there was a thing that came through about sort of saying a mantra of recognising that you're loved and of worth. Because I think until I got married and family, there was that real sense that you had worth, because I think the experiences were because you didn't achieve, because you didn't go to university, because you didn't do that, and you weren't as good as your brothers or whatever, you weren't really worth. And I think and again it comes back to, I think, with your children and whatever in school, is that unconditional love, you know, that you really hope that people feel.
I think it's a realisation as well, Rob, that your identity doesn't come through what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's who you are.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just who you
And
are.
the uniqueness of who you are. Being aware of that. Once you get rid of the Catholic guilt, which I think is one of the so many things not talked about tonight. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our hour. Before I tell you about what's coming later on in the evening, can I ask our two speakers tonight to think of the answer to this last question, and that is this. When Cecil Rhodes died, and he was a great imperialist of the 19th century, and Rhodesia is named after him, he had on his tombstone the words, "So much to do, so little done." What would you choose as your epitaph? Can you think of that for a minute, please, while I invite our audience to join us later on this evening, because although this is the end of this exceptionally wonderful part of the evening, we have at 7:30 Common Ground. And in Common Ground, it includes film, original music, drama, breakdance, poetry, rap, a few stories, the sax quartet, and all within this exhibition. It's an excellent middle part of our evening, so please join us then. And at 9 o'clock tonight, we have our final cabaret, and that is a mixture of the great and the good who have performed throughout this week, and you will not be able to have a better evening anywhere else than here. So please join us at 7:30 and at 9 o'clock. Can I come back to you, gentlemen? What would your epitaph be?
Can I just thank people for being here, by the way. I found this quite self-indulgent at the moment. I'm not sure it was cathartic. It was, a bit like therapy. I always I like Spike Milligan's epitaph when he's just I told you I was ill. And he had to put that on in Gaelic because they wouldn't let him put it on in English. So it says in Gaelic on his tombstone, I told you I was ill.
Rab?
Yeah, I really have no desire to have anything whatsoever on my tombstone. Because I won't be there. I'm not there. So you can put what you like on.
Thank you.
The bastard.
I think that Anne and the girls have already decided, actually, because apparently whenever I do anything in the house, the refrain is always when they come back, I say, took a wee bit longer than I thought.
In my case, I've thought about this quite a lot. I've decided that probably the best word or 3 words were, I was trying.
Yes.
My thanks to our guests for being so frank and informative and amusing. My thanks to yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along tonight. Maybe I was jesting earlier on when I said that we were not keeping the best to last, but I'll let you decide that. Have a wonderful festival, and thank you for coming.